By 1930, they had just moved out of the house and turned the whole thing over to the public, and it is still there today in Washington, D.C., and is known as the Phillips Collection.
About 35,000 people have seen the Phillips Collection during its stay at the Oklahoma Art Center. That is the largest response any exhibit at the museum has received since it opened nearly 50 years ago.
This is a lovely George Ennis, who was a leading American landscape painter.
The exhibit at the center contains 75 paintings from a collection that numbers nearly 2,000. They are paintings that are almost cliches in their originality and beauty. They are considered among the best in their style, and the response has gratified the people responsible for the exhibit.
It really shows what Oklahoma City and Oklahoma can do, that they do come out, they are interested if something wonderful is presented correctly.
See how everything's kind of outlined in red? The collars outlined in red, and the hat. Do you see how
The crowning piece of the collection is a painting by Renoir entitled Luncheon of the Boating Party. The whole collection is an education, and not just for the young. There is still nearly a week and a half before the collection leaves the Art Center, and if the numbers of visitors continue to grow like they have, at least 5,000 more people may be captivated by the art of Impressionism. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4, at the Oklahoma Art Center.
New Year's Eve, a night when many people who otherwise wouldn't indulge do, with liquor. Aside from the obvious dangers involved with driving, there are other problems, like hangovers, and what to do about them.
Well, I believe 50% beer and 50% tomato juice mixed with a chaser of tequila.
And it helps you.
Well, if you live through it, it'll help you.
Don't get out of bed, just sleep all day.
Well, I get up and take about a half a dozen aspirins and then head back to bed for a while.
Secret is taking B12 the night before you go drinking. B12 vitamins, it keeps you from getting the hangover.
Does it really?
Yeah.
What about C?
Makes you energetic the next day.
Those all sound reasonable, but do doctors agree?
The best prevention for a hangover, of course, is abstinence. Short of that, moderation is going to be the best remedy for a hangover.
The best advice? Drink moderately. Dan Slocum, Action 4.
That was a downer bill, 1982. Of course, towards the end of the year, things were looking up. Most significant, of course, was our switch over to building two different body style cars, the A and the X. And that's got to be looked at as a positive sign because it gives us the flexibility that we didn't have before when we were just building Citations and the Phoenix.
In the process of laying a line, a feeder line from the hydrant, we have to, of course, stop at the hydrant and take our hose off to catch the hydrant, what we call catching the hydrant. The engine then lays out to the fire, and that particular firefighter hooks up the line to the hydrant and turns the water on and gives us a supply to the fire.
And this young man was doing that?
Yes, he was in the process of doing that. Apparently it had hooked it up and was starting to follow the line up to the fire when he was struck.
Joining a little later is Dr. Gene Cooper, the kind of job he'll be taking on when Mr. Johnson decides to terminate it, but none of the group that we're talking about here today. In spite of the dismal picture that this paints, and it is a dismal picture, I'm optimistic that by trimming our sails, we're going to be able to get through this fiscal year without cutting services or cutting programs or asking for a supplemental. Now, that's not a promise. That's our objective. I wasn't born yesterday. I know politicians are always calling up recommending, and we will take those recommendations into account the same as we would if you called and told us someone is a good person. But I don't mean to say we're going to start war with the legislature, but at the same time, we're not going to go along with any policy that gives employees the impression that they got their job because of knowing someone in the legislature and who therefore do not feel any obligation to perform their duties. If they can't perform their duties, they won't be hired or they won't stay.
The Oklahoma Halfway House wants to operate a home here for homeless boys. Up to 10 boys would stay at the house from 14 to 17 years old. But first, a private nonprofit organization must get an operating permit from the city council. Officials were told by the planning commission that the city should issue the permit. But residents in the area say the boys' home would do nothing but worsen their neighborhood. One city councilman felt that was a stereotype. Other residents argued a house in that area could only hurt the boys.
Now, if we want to emote and talk about our property values and all of this junk, you are helping yourselves when you try to do something about society's neglected children. These children are not dangerous. I worked for 11 years with 700 of them from all over the United States that everybody thought was going to come running into their bedrooms at night, and it never did happen. We live in an age of phobias. And when there is an unknown, we automatically fear that unknown.
2.5 blocks away is a house of ill repute. I can tell you the room number, because I've gone undercover because of lack of our police department not having funds to do this. Okay? Another block south is a Jesus Saves house. Okay? Where he feeds them beer and takes them upstairs and saves them. I see this every time when I come home from church, and it makes me sick.
In related action, a permit to operate a halfway house on Northwest 25th was also requested. This facility would treat up to 30 young men with drug and alcohol problems in a family-like environment. The operating permits for the halfway house and boys' home were denied by City Council because neighborhood resistance proved to be too strong. Ed Stewart, Action 4, Northwest Oklahoma City.
I feel that I am at least mildly equipped.
Fans impatiently waited, straining their necks to catch a glimpse of his plane. Young and old, there must have been 100 fans at the airport. Who were they waiting for? Probably the biggest entertainer ever to hit Oklahoma City, Luciano Pavarotti. Hands reached out, as well as flowers and pens and paper for autographs. As Pavarotti made his way through the crowds, there was nothing but smiling faces at the airport. Like bees to honey, the airport was buzzing with activity. It became evident that he is not only an international star, but a world-class sex symbol.
You still had it back, huh? Yeah, there you go, sir. Hang on.
Oh my gracious, he's just the greatest. Beautiful. Fantastic. Oh, he didn't hear me. I said Pavarotti, but he didn't hear me. That's all right. I want him to be restful and for his performance. I'm just thrilled to be here.
Meantime, Pavarotti relaxed with a cup of coffee and told reporters his first impression of Oklahoma City.
I like the people, and I already said they're beautiful women, and it's something that I did always like since I was born, and I'm very pleased for that.
So, for the next few days, there will be nothing but excitement around this man, and when he leaves, there may be some broken hearts. Belishaw, Action 4 at Will Rogers World Airport.
By providing a system whereby there would be a public process to determine policy of that agency, whereby they were accountable to the legislature and the governor, it would, I think, eventually lead to the establishment of policy which was sounder, which was more efficient, more economical, provided better services to the people that it was created to serve.
The inaugural festivities began at Kirkpatrick Auditorium at Oklahoma City University, where the men who will be sworn in on Monday were honored by an arts gala.
The Honorable George Nye and his wife Donna.
The artist varied from jazz to classical flamenco guitar, from verbal language to body language. The artists represent the finest and most established across the state. They donated their time and talents for the show this evening. No one said it directly, but the message was implied that the theme from the Diamond Jubilee celebration, "You're Doing Fine, Oklahoma," was doubly correct when it comes to the arts.
I did talk to some of the people after about July, August, September. They said, "Jim, for pity's sakes, get out and tell the American people what you're doing. What you're doing is right, but you're so busy doing it, you're not telling them." And I started in September of 1981, and I've been traveling extensively since then in an effort to tell the great story that we're bringing about.
Construction of Leadership Square couldn't be going better. Oklahoma City's latest downtown project will cover nearly 800,000 square feet once completed in July of 1984. But one more building will have to be leveled first. The local federal building is seeing its final days. Built in the mid-1950s, it once served as the bank's headquarters. Leadership officials had considered building the new offices next to local federal, but that plan was unfeasible.
The building will be coming down. Leadership Properties does own the building, and it will be within the next few months. Time frame, I can't give you an exact date. We are currently relocating the tenants, including myself. So as soon as that effort is completed, then the building will be taken down.
By removing the local federal building, it will make way for additional plaza space. Besides leasing offices, Leadership Square will house several retail stores. Once the third floor is completed, a floor a week will be constructed until the twin stair-step towers begin to take shape. Ed Stewart, Action 4 in downtown Oklahoma City.
Issue, that's what they've taken.
Okay.
And
Because of its national impact.
Yeah. And the constitutional issue really has nothing to do with the amount. What the
Would give it an order. The Supreme Court order would usually go heard the case, and we will take before it, that judge, the issue of whether, just so you understand this part, because your question seemed like it got it. We are pleased that the court saw the national importance of the case, and of course it's important to our clients and to us because we've invested so much in it and because we feel that the 10th Circuit decision was incorrect and unjust.
Chairman said anything as he issued a sentence?
He said this morning that he was disappointed, of course, that there will be apparently further delay in the proceedings, but he is confident that our position is correct, the legal position is correct, and that it will be upheld in the long run.
Last year, 8,500 women were counseled by Planned Parenthood in Oklahoma City. 300 of them were underage and never told their parents about their visits. One study showed that if parental consent is required, 25% of the minors would end up using no birth control at all. And with that would come an increasing number of pregnancies. For that reason, the executive director of Planned Parenthood is against the proposed regulations.
If that rule is imposed, and for the family planning clinics that would be going along with it, I think that there will be a great risk of young people not making access to family planning, and I think there will be a much higher rate of unintended, unwanted pregnancies among the teenage population today.
Of course, if there were more communication between parents and their children about sex, many girls would not end up pregnant before they wanted to be. Perhaps the government really wants more communication, but the new rules might end up cutting off the communication between the young girls and Planned Parenthood. Bella Shaw, Action 4.
Earl Dutton sells American Motors cars. His business began picking up last October. That's when American Motors and its French partner Renault began selling the Alliance. The partnership seems to be working well for both sides. American Motors needed access to technology, and Renault is the world's largest producer of front-wheel drive cars. Renault needed access to North American markets, and American had a network of dealers already in place. The Alliance is the first product mutually developed by both companies. It's built in Kenosha, Wisconsin. 30,000 of them have been sold in the last 3 months. Sales may get even better now that Motor Trend magazine has named the Alliance its Car of the Year.
The demand for the car was so strong that we went to a two-shift operation, built 600 a day, and that's about where we are right now, building 600 a day. And in order to accommodate a two-shift operation, we had to recall about 2,000 laid-off workers, something which I think is going to be fairly unique in the auto industry these days.
Guptill said he expects other American car manufacturers to enter into partnerships with foreign companies. American is certainly pleased with their tie to Renault. So far, it's been a profitable alliance. Bill Ross, Action 4 in Northwest Oklahoma City.
$250 food, security, and clerical workers at Memorial and Children's Hospitals will be the first casualties in the battle of budget belt-tightening in Oklahoma. The Department of Human Services announced the layoffs earlier this week in an effort to save money. Many of the laid-off workers are minorities. Many of them were trained by the department for their jobs and taken off welfare.
Yes, they had, and that's right. And so now is the department going to pick up the placing of those persons back on the welfare rolls, which only compounds the problem? And are they going to require them to go out and seek employment or to force them into the unemployment market and not give them benefits? I think we're just compounding the problem, and we're not saving a dime by laying them off. And I don't want to see any more layoffs until at least there's been some touching base with the legislature.
Porter and other lawmakers have said the layoffs should have included other levels of employment as well, besides the ones that were minority intensive. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4, at the state capitol.
Over the last 4 or 5 years, I'd say, it's been a general trend each year to increase, and these are more or less increases on increases each year. Now, I do need to point out that this is not the entire 1982 statistics yet. This is just the three-quarter statistics. Okay. The annual statistics will be out sometime in probably May.
The last half of 1982, the Seminole Indian tribe was a nation engulfed by controversy. The tribal headquarters at Wewoka were chained shut because of a dispute over who was chief of the tribe. James Milam claimed the role, but a rival, Ed Tanyan, claimed the tribal council voted Milam out, and that he, Tanyan, was the rightful leader. The dispute came to a head when Milam was subpoenaed to appear in Washington. The court ruled in his favor, and he came back to the Sooner State to take over.
Today, the Seminole Nation was meeting to decide what to do next, to finally choose what direction the tribe should take.
These tribal headquarters south of Seminole is where the tribe will be moving permanently. They like it here and feel it's a better atmosphere than the complex in Wewoka. But all is still not well with the Seminole Nation.
I expect probably another 6 months of hard times from BIA. See, not only BIA, by their lack of putting out that letter rescinding everything that they'd sent out for Ed Tanyan. Why, it's kind of blocked up our bank accounts and it's blocked up our other program monies and stuff like this, and we're financially broke, you know. We got money in the bank, but we can't get it to it.
Even though they're having problems now, Milam sees good things down the road for the Seminoles. But he emphasizes the key to that prosperity lies in the ability of the Seminoles to pull together as a united nation once and for all. Kevin Ogle, Action 4 in Seminole.
And if you had been at the December 8th meeting with Scott Keek, why, you would realize that
the fact that in the New Testament, in the book of Galatians, It is said that in Christ there is neither male nor female. The principle, as it was discussed last night, being that a person ought not to be disqualified for any service in the kingdom of God by gender. Whether they're male or female is a minor matter. In terms of service to Christ, all people are equal.
A viewer says the executor of an estate is not handling it as the family feels that he should. Can he be dismissed or reprimanded? Yes, provided he has committed one or more of the violations set out in the Oklahoma statutes concerning the suspension or removal of an executor or administrator. The acts which may be complained of are waste, embezzlement, mismanagement, fraud, neglect, or incompetence. Further, if the executor, or personal representative, as they are now called, has been guilty of misconduct that has resulted in losses to the estate, he is required to post a bond when he is appointed to cover those losses. That is, unless the will specifically waives the bond. For Action 4, this is Ray Vaughn with Legal Briefs.
I just live 3 doors down, slowed it down. We hear a lot about all of the problems that we are going through. Unemployment rate is certainly at a very high level, still in the 10 to 11% range. But on the other hand, we sometimes fail to look at the fact that 90% of the workforce is employed. And we certainly have inflation at this time under control, and I certainly don't see the dark scenario that would suggest that people ought to rush out and buy gold.
And this is one of the animals, Laura, that could really benefit from this. Is that correct?
That's right.
What can taxpayers do to help out this situation?
Okay, on line 53 of the state income tax form this year, for the first time, taxpayers can check off a donation to help bald eagles, scissor-tail flycatchers, and a number of other non-game species that we have here in the state.
Well, if either one of you would like to answer, how does a management program work? Very briefly, and we don't have much time, unfortunately.
Go ahead, Laura. Okay, I'm more familiar with things here in Oklahoma, and what the plans are to develop some programs that will help save the habitat where the animals need to live, and also help endangered species like the bald eagle. Also to help people enjoy and appreciate the wildlife that we have, because we have a great diversity of wildlife. And right now we're only managing and helping those that are hunted and fished. So now we're going to broaden out and help all the wildlife species that we have in the state.
Well, is this unique to Oklahoma, or are other states already doing this?
That's right. 20 states have this program now.
Times are tough economically for all of us. What's in it for me to contribute even $2 or $5 of the refund that I might be getting back to help this out?
I think the answer might be it's preserving a part of our Oklahoma heritage and something that your kids and your grandkids can get out and enjoy and appreciate. I think we all enjoy watching wildlife. Just looking at this eagle here, I don't know, it's exciting and something beautiful to look at that would be missing if we couldn't each individually help.
Thank you.